The problem with guilt is that guilt itself is usually what is causing the majority of the problem. Guilt distorts everything in your reality and just creates ripples of further issues, right? Guilt is like shame or perfectionism. There's kind of like a cluster of feelings that do this, where they're almost like add-on feelings that basically do nothing but create further distortions, right? So you feel guilty because you have something to feel guilty about, you know? Well, I mean, the thing is, a lot of the time when we feel guilty, we don't even have anything to feel guilty about. We're feeling guilty for things that aren't really a problem, or maybe even if they are a problem in a way, to an extent, they're really not something we need to feel guilty about. And feeling guilt doesn't help anything at all, right? Like, guilt is just this add-on thing. Although I suppose, if we're taking you could do a thought experiment about something very extreme, and you could go, okay, well, in that scenario, perhaps it is proper that somebody feel guilt about that. I mean, okay, right? That's absolutely plausible. Perhaps there are things humans can do where we really should feel guilty, and then we need to work through that guilt. The thing is, though, if that is the case, then we really want to reserve guilt for those extreme circumstances where guilt is very kind of necessary, or at least seems to have a function, right? Perhaps there is functional guilt and non-functional guilt. And most of us, most of the time, when we are feeling guilty about something, we are feeling non-functional guilt because I don't know if you can hear my cat screaming in the background. This is a good example. He's screaming, and I'm sure he wants me to feel guilty for not taking him outside right now. But I'm not taking him outside right now because it's the middle of the night and I'm in bed, and it's not safe for him to go out alone here. There is a pack of coyotes roaming around outside, so I cannot let him out. So I've been taking him out supervised. He was out for 2 hours today. We had a really good walk. He's living a good life, right? He's not trapped in here all of the time. But he kind of wants me to feel guilty about not taking him outside. If I were to really, and of course I kind of do, right? I kind of feel guilty for not giving him everything that he wants, but I really have to push back against that because I know I've been taking as good a care of my cat as I can in the situation that I am in. And if I were to spend, more than a half a second feeling guilty, if I were to feel guilty, if I were really to wallow in the guilt and to really allow the guilt to grow, that would become very, very non-functional, and it would derail my entire day, and it would just cause this just wave after wave after wave of further problems in my life, right? It would distort my behavior. It would distort my sense of self. It would distort my sense of like what I should do for my cat, right? It would distort my sense of what makes me a good mom to my cat. And it would throw everything in my life out of balance if I allowed the little flicker of guilt I feel for not taking my cat out for the third time today. If I allowed that to grow too hugely, right, it would become this life-altering distortion. It would be very non-functional guilt. In that case, you know, the problem would be my guilt, right? Right now, my minor problem is that me and my cat disagree about how often he should get to go outside. And, that's something we grapple with. But if I were to add on guilt to the pile, well, now guilt is the problem, right? Now guilt is the problem. And my story here about feeling guilty about not walking my cat for the third time today, that might sound a little silly, right? It might seem silly that I would feel guilty about that. And, honestly, most of the things most of us feel guilty about on a daily basis are probably in the realm of feeling guilty for not walking my cat for the third time in a single day. So, really consider the implications of your guilt, right? Especially if you're feeling guilty about something that just really doesn't need you to feel guilty about it. And really think about that, right? Is this something that is so horrible that you have done that you really need to go through this whole guilt arc and work through the guilt and release the guilt and apologize to whoever you wronged and blah, 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 blah? Is it really this big of a thing? Or are you feeling non-functional guilt? And is the guilt itself the problem? Is the guilt itself the thing that is distorting your life and causing a whole cascade of further problems? And really track that, right? Really, if you really need to feel how, if you need to convince yourself that you need to tackle the guilt itself as the problem, that's what I'm trying to say here, right? Guilt itself is the problem when you are feeling non-functional guilt over relatively normal everyday things, right? So if you need to convince yourself that you need to tackle guilt itself as the problem, track how guilt distorts your behavior, your emotions, your mindset, your state of consciousness, all of the things that you do in the day, the things you choose to focus on or not focus on, your interactions with others. Really track how guilt is affecting you, the people around you, and your reality itself. And then you will start to understand the repercussions of allowing yourself to get taken up by this non-functional guilt. And when you really see how guilt itself is your problem, then you allow yourself to tackle guilt as a problem, and then you can dial the guilt way down, way, 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 way down. And of course, when you don't walk your cat for the third time in a single day, you might feel a flicker of guilt and you feel like, I feel bad. I wish I could do that, right? But you won't let it balloon into this great big horrible life distorting monster. And then your life will be so much less distorted, and you will be amazed how allowing your guilt to become so much smaller about everyday things will clean up and clear up so much of the miasma in your life, and your life will become more functional, more clear, and you will have so much more energy, all because you decided to see guilt itself as the problem.